Takemichi Hanagaki, a washed-up nobody stuck apologizing to his younger boss and mocked by bullies, once had it all. Back in his second year of middle school, he had respect, a gang of loyal friends, and even a girlfriend he adored. Life, however, took a nosedive, leaving him with nothing but regrets. But when a tragic news report reveals the brutal passing of his ex-girlfriend at the hands of the most powerful Tokyo Manji gang, Takemichi's dull life takes a sudden turn. One split second before an oncoming train ends it all, he's thrown back 12 years into the past, back to the days when life still made sense. Realizing he can alter time itself, his story begins as he resolves to rewrite the future and save the only girl he ever loved. Takemichi Hanagaki is lying around, eating snacks, and hears on the news that the Tokyo Manji gang has caused some civilian deaths, including Naoto and Hinata Takebana. Takemichi is shocked because Hinata was his only girlfriend back in middle school. A neighbor knocks on his door, saying the TV is too loud, and Takemichi apologizes. At work, his manager scolds him again for not putting returned DVDs back on the shelves, and Takemichi apologizes once more. On his way home, some kids scratched a car and ran away, leaving Takemichi to take the blame. At the train station, Takemichi feels overwhelmed by his life, having to apologize for everything and still being a nobody. As a train approaches, someone pushes him onto the tracks. Just before he gets hit, he thinks about Hinata. However, Takemichi finds himself reincarnated back in middle school, exactly 12 years ago, on July 4, 2005. He's with his old friends Makoto, Yamagishi, Akun, and Takuya. They're happy to see Takemichi, and he notices he looks just like he did back in middle school, all drippy and funky like he used to be. They talk about Takemichi's cousin, Masaru, who is the supposed leader of Shibuya 3rd Middle School. They plan to confront the second year of Shibuya 3rd Middle School, but Takemichi is nervous about fighting since he hasn't done it in 10 years. Practical life hit him pretty hard, it seems. When they arrive in Shibuya, they only find 1st and 3rd year students and wonder where the 2nd years are. Suddenly, the 3rd year led by Masataka Kiyomizu appears. Masataka mentions that the 2nd year is on a school trip. Yamagishi says they spoke with Masaru, which makes one of the 3rd year students laugh and call Masaru, who then must buy drinks for the group. Takemichi remembers that Masaru was not a leader but pretended to be to impress the young lads. The group ends up getting beaten to pulp and is told they will now join the Tokyo Manji gang. Just to remind you, all these people literally in middle school. Takemichi recalls how their difficult days began and why he left town after graduation. Takemichi remembers Hinata and decides to visit her, even though he has forgotten what she looks like. When Hinata sees him beaten, she knows he has been fighting again and tells him to stop fighting over trivial things. Seeing her makes Takemichi cry and he tries to leave, saying he only wanted to see her. Hinata notices he's not himself and questions him. After talking for a bit, Takemichi leaves, crying, and sits on some swings. He hears some guys bothering a younger kid, gets angry, and confronts them. He punches one of them, breaks a bottle, and threatens to kill them if they don't leave. Damn, he was quite a badass in his prime. It's astonishing how he fell off. The guys quickly apologize and leave. The younger boy thanks Takemichi and Takemichi advises him to be confident and not back down from bullies. The boy introduces himself as Naoto Takebana, Hinata's younger brother. Takemichi realizes that Naoto will also die in 12 years and asks if he loves his sister. Naoto blushes but says he doesn't, as she bosses him around. Takemichi then tells him to take care of Hinata and that he loves her. Takemichi explains that he traveled back in time from July 1, 2017, where Hinata and Naoto will die. He asks Naoto to remember that date and protect his sister. Takemichi then shakes Naoto's hand. Takemichi wakes up in the station infirmary on July 4, 2017. He wonders if the previous events were just a dream but is puzzled by how he survived the train incident without any injuries. The person who saved him comes in and reveals he is Naoto. Naoto explains that Takemichi's actions changed the past, and he had time traveled. Naoto had used the information Takemichi gave him to save his life. However, despite his hard work and becoming a police officer, Naoto still couldn't protect Hinata, who still died. Naoto asks Takemichi to help him save his sister. Takemichi Hanagaki agrees to help save Hinata Takebana. Naoto Takebana explains that his power is time travel, and he can jump to the exact same day but 12 years into the past. Takemichi spends 2 days without sleep in Naoto's room, where Naoto gives him all the information he has collected about the Tokyo Manji gang. Naoto tells Takemichi that some of this information isn't known to the public because his predecessor obtained it while working undercover. After being discovered, Naoto's predecessor was killed, and his death was recorded in a video found in his eye socket. Naoto got transferred to his predecessor's position 6 months ago after repeatedly requesting transfers. Naoto tells Takemichi that he can't choose when to travel back, so when he returns to the past, he needs to meet the top 2 members of the Tokyo Manji gang, Mikey Sano and Tada Kisaki. Naoto explains that if these two never met, the Tokyo Manji gang would not exist in its current form, and his sister would not have to die. Takemichi asks how he will find them, and Naoto explains that Takemichi mentioned he returned to the present after shaking hands with Naoto. Now the question arises if Takemichi after the handshake was the original Takemichi or the future Takemichi. I'm not gonna lie, this time traveling stuff makes me kinda dizzy to follow up, but oh well, the things I gotta endure to make entertaining recaps for you guys. Back to the story, Naoto believes that handshakes were the trigger for time travel. He tells Takemichi that Mikey and Kisaki first met in August, and Takemichi needs to stay close to one of them and prevent their meeting. They shake hands, and Takemichi travels back 12 years. Takemichi opens his eyes to find himself in a fight with people betting on the outcome. He's shocked by his location and checks his phone to confirm he's really back in time. As he's doing this, his opponent punches him and knocks him out. Poor guy always finds himself in the worst of the places. Later, Takemichi wakes up to find himself with Masataka Kiyomizu's gang. They're annoyed that he went down after just one punch and threatened to stop coming and betting if the fights were so disappointing. Masataka orders his men to teach Takemichi a lesson, and they start beating him up. Takemichi recalls that he used to be Masataka's slave in the Fight Club, which was one of the reasons he left his friends and Hinata behind. As Masataka and his men leave, Takemichi wonders if they are part of the Tokyo Manji gang and if he could meet Mikey or Kisaki. Masataka, angered by the mention of Mikey's name, starts hitting Takemichi with a bat. His men intervene to stop him before Takemichi is killed. Masataka warns Takemichi not to mention Mikey's name again, which frightens Takemichi and makes him think meeting anyone will be impossible. Feeling scared, Takemichi decides to go to Naoto and shake his hand again. He forgets that Hinata lives there too and encounters her, who is concerned about his injuries. Hinata says that if she were a boy, she would fight to protect Takemichi. Too bad she isn't a guy and has to rely on a wuss like Takemichi. Takemichi responds that he will protect her too and realizes he called her Hina. Hinata blushes but is happy with the nickname. After leaving her place, Takemichi thinks he isn't obligated to save her since they haven't talked for years in the present. However, seeing Hinata now, he feels he can't let her die. Seems like seeing his love after all this time has reignited his passion for love. Good for him, he was too much of a pussy. The next day, Takemichi's friends meet in the bathroom. Fight Club fights are becoming a daily event. Sendo reveals that Takuya Yamamoto will be fighting that day. Takemichi remembers that Takuya is quite fragile and almost died in a previous fight. Although the group disagrees, they feel powerless against Masataka. Hakan wants to take Takuya's place, but Masataka won't agree. Watching his friends, Takemichi realizes how much they care for each other and appreciates how cool they are. The fight begins, with Kojima from Sekura Middle School facing Takuya from Mizo Middle School, with odds of 6-4 in Kojima's favor. Masataka signals for the fight to start, but Takemichi interrupts. Takemichi! He complains that the fights are boring and suggests something more exciting, like a match between a king and a slave. He approaches Masataka and challenges him to fight. Knowing he can't save Hinata by staying a slave, Takemichi challenges Masataka Kiyomizu to a fight. Masataka agrees, and the first punch Takemichi receives makes him realize how much stronger Masataka is and regrets all his choices that led him to this moment. Takemichi, while still being beaten, mutters about how weak and apologetic he has been over the past 12 years. He tells Masataka that if Masataka wants to win, he'll have to kill him because he isn't giving up. Ken Ryuguji, the vice commander of the Tokyo Manji gang, arrives and tells Masataka to calm down because he's scaring the crowd. Behind Ken, Mikey Sano, the commander of the Tokyo Manji gang, is also present, who is nicknamed Mickey. He is the famous Mikey guy who everyone is so fearful of. While Takemichi's friends wonder who he is, everyone else bows and greets Mikey. Masataka greets Mikey, but as he walks past him, Ken kicks Masataka in the gut and tells him to show more respect to Mikey. Mikey approaches Takemichi and tells Takemichi that from today on, they are friends, which surprises Takemichi. Mikey then confronts Masataka and asks if he is running the fights. When Masataka confirms this, Mikey kicks him in the face and proceeds to beat him up. Mikey decides to leave, saying he finds the Fight Club boring, and Ken tells Masataka not to tarnish the Tokyo Manji gang's reputation. The next morning, Takemichi heads to school and runs into Hinata. She asks him out on a date before her cram school later that day. It looks like our boy is finally going to get some. During class, Takemichi wonders what his next move should be. He has met Mikey but needs to figure out how to prevent Mikey and Kisaki from meeting. He hears noise in the corridors and sees Mikey entering his classroom, asking him to come out and play, which shocks Takemichi due to Mikey's wild behavior. Takemichi steps out of the classroom and sees several third-year students beaten. Ken informs him that he got angry and beat them up. Ken then orders the third year to line up on their stomachs and walks over them with Mikey. Mikey wants Takemichi to hang out with them, but Takemichi says he's busy. As they try to convince him, Hinata misunderstands the situation and slaps Mikey. She takes Takemichi's hand and tries to leave, but Ken stops them. Hinata tells them that if they were truly Takemichi's friends, they wouldn't have taken him by force, and if they are causing him trouble, she will stop them. Takemichi puts his hand on Ken and tells him to let Hinata go because there are things he won't give up. Mikey asks Takemichi how he wants to die, but Takemichi asks him to promise not to hurt Hinata. Mikey says he doesn't care and reaches to punch Takemichi but then stops, saying he was joking and would never hit a girl. Ken comments that Takemichi threatened him, but it's fine because protecting a girl is an old-fashioned value. Chivalry is not dead after all. After learning that Takemichi and Mikey are friends, Hinata apologizes to Mikey, who tells her it's okay but advises her not to push herself too hard. She then tells Takemichi that they can go on a date another time. Mikey c***ed poor Takemichi so hard. While riding bikes, Takemichi recalls Nayato's warnings about the Tokyo Manji gang's future misdeeds and wonders if Mikey, who is now so friendly, is really the head of such an evil gang. Takemichi asks Mikey why he likes him, and Mikey explains that Takemichi reminds him of his older brother, who was reckless and picked fights with much stronger opponents. If only he knew how much of a wuss Takemichi truly is. Mikey shares that in the past, delinquents were considered cool and tough, and he wants to create a new era for delinquents. Mikey wants Takemichi to join him in this vision. Ken adds that while there are many good fighters, few have strong convictions like Takemichi. As Takemichi walks home, he reflects on Mikey and wonders if he could truly be the same person who would cause Hinata's death. He passes a group of guys and feels like he has seen one of them before. Takemichi and Hinata travel together in a train when Hinata sees some students making noise and scolds them to not spread that much and take less seats, so that an older lady can sit. Hinata invites Takemichi to her place so that she can help him study. Takemichi got excited thinking that he may finally get lucky tonight. Takemichi is happy to be in Hinata's room, as it's the first girl's room he is in. Hinata's mom comes in and teases her daughter thinking that Takemichi is her boyfriend. Hinata thanks Takemichi for helping Naoto the other day and that their dad is often missing, and Naoto didn't like him, but suddenly he started saying he wants to be like him, a police officer. Takemichi then realizes why Naoto became a police officer. Hinata states that Takemichi feels more mature or it's simply a side she didn't know and wishes to know more about him. Suddenly fireworks start and Hinata takes Takemichi to the roof to enjoy the view. Takemichi enjoys the moment and doesn't want to return to the future as Hinata isn't there. He reaches to hold her hand, but Naoto comes out of nowhere and ruins Takemichi's moment as he returns to the present. In the present, Takemichi wakes up and starts crying because he was so close to getting some with Hinata. Naoto realizes his theory about handshaking is correct and guesses something must have changed since Takemichi returned. However, learning that Takemichi shook his hand by mistake, he gets angry. Naoto reveals they learned something new about his time travel. Takemichi returns exactly 12 years in the past, and if he spends a week there, when he returns to the present a week has passed as well, and during that time his body is in suspended animation. Takemichi reveals he met Mikey Sano, making Naoto wonder why he didn't kill him. Takemichi suggests that they go and see Mikey as he wants to learn from him why Tommen changed. Naoto agrees and states that Takemichi's weak side seems to have gone now. Spending some time with his girlfriend really manned up our boy. While they go over documents to look for a way to find Mikey, Naoto sees someone he doesn't recognize. Atsushi Sendo had become a member of Tommen's upper echelon. Naoto finds it strange as in his timeline, Sendo got arrested for stabbing Masataka Kiyomizu, and after his release he was just a no-name punk. They realize Takemichi must have changed the past after he fought Masataka and kept Sendo from stabbing him. They decided to call Sendo as he may arrange a meeting with Mikey. Takemichi finds Sendo's old phone number in his dirty apartment and hopes he hasn't changed it. He recalls how Sendo said they will all be friends forever. Sendo ends up answering and Takemichi arranges a meeting with him at the hostess bar Sendo is running. Naoto wonders if Takemichi should have been that frank and told Sendo he is looking to meet Mikey, since even the police can't find him and it may look suspicious, but Takemichi assures him that friendships don't change that easily. When they meet Sendo, Takemichi can't recognize him at first as he is missing his pompadour, who tells Takemichi he has been waiting all this time for Takemichi to show up. Sendo wishes to speak with Takemichi in private and they head to the rooftop. There they talk about the fun times they had in the past. Takemichi comments that Sendo must have a good life with all the money, but Sendo responds that there are things you can't buy. A typical thing a guy says when he earns all the money he wants. He knows that Naoto is a cop and that he is Hinata's little brother. Sendo then reveals he was the one that pushed him into the train tracks, but Naoto saved him like he knew Takemichi would fall into the tracks. Sendo wonders if Takemichi can go back to the past and asks Naoto for help. Sendo believes that's insane, but there is no other explanation. Takemichi is hurt and Sendo would try to kill him, and believes it must be a lie as he is his friend. Sendo reveals that he is Kasaki's soldier and everyone in Tommen obeys him, as they haven't seen Mikey in years. Sendo reveals that Mikey changed after Ken Ryuguji died and asks Takemichi to go back in the past and save him, save everyone. After that, Sendo jumps from the rooftop and dies, causing Takemichi to start crying. On the other end of the rooftop, Kasaki is seen listening to their conversation. Takemichi tells Naoto to investigate the day Ken Ryuguji died, as it was Kasaki who turned Tommen evil. Takemichi then decides to save everyone using his crybaby powers. Takemichi goes to work, but Hisakawa informs him that he is fired as he disappeared for 2 weeks. Takemichi wonders if he should tell Hinata about the future, but Naoto tells him not to as she may find him crazy and dislike him. With Atsushi Sendo dead, they have no other way but to go again in the past. Naoto reads the news reports on Ken Ryuguji's death. On August 3, 2005, he and 50 other people were in a biker gang fight, and he ended up being stabbed and died. The reason for the fight was inner strife between Mikey and Ken's faction. Takemichi finds that hard to believe as Ken understands Mikey more than anyone else. Naoto states that Takemichi's current mission is to save Ken, which will result in Mikey not changing and Atsushi and Hinata not dying. As they agree on the mission, Takemichi and Naoto shake hands. Takemichi opens his eyes to find himself in a karaoke room with a half-naked girl on him. Good lord, he really does find himself in the most unexpected of places. As the room phone rings and she picks it up, Takemichi runs away. In that moment, Hinata appears behind him. As she looks at him, she states he has been weird recently and now he looks like the mature Takemichi. On the night of the fireworks, he just rushed home without a word and been cold to her ever since, but now he is kind again. Ken calls Takemichi and tells him to come to Musashi Shrine as they are gathering there, and Hinata decides to go with Takemichi. As they arrive at the shrine, they see multiple people with bikes and two start yelling at Takemichi to leave as this is Tommen gathering. Takemichi tries to explain he was invited, but they don't believe him. Takashi Matsuya, the 2nd Division captain, realizes this is Takemichi and scolds the two for scaring the commander's guest. Takashi takes them to Mikey, who is glad that Takemichi came. Ken comments he shouldn't have taken Hinata with him, but Takemichi explains he didn't know it was this kind of gathering. Ken then calls Emma and tells her to protect Hinata as she is Takemichi's girlfriend. Takemichi sees Emma as the same girl from the karaoke and she ends up calling him a wussy boy. Emma states Takemichi made her get into her underwear and was so close to getting some, but he just ran away. Hinata gets angry and beats up Takemichi and then leaves. Emma is surprised that he went with her, considering he had Hinata. It turns out Emma wanted to make Ken jealous, so she laid down with Takemichi. The meeting of Tommen starts and Mikey wants to know the gang's opinion on the conflict with Mobius, another rival gang. Takashi explains that Mobius leader Nobutaka Asanai messed with Pachin's bud for something stupid. Nobutaka beat up his bud and raped his girlfriend in front of him, then took his money and hung his parents and siblings. Takashi explains that Tommen runs Shibuya while Mobius runs Shinjuku. Mikey asks Pachin what he wants to do. Pachin is aware that if they fight, Tommen won't go unscathed, but he is really irritated and wishes to fight and dispose of them. Mikey knew he would say that. He asks everyone if they are scared or think it's too much trouble to fight for his bud, but everyone just grins. Mikey then yells they are going to crush Mobius on August 3rd, the Musashi Festival. In bed, Takemichi thinks about the situation. He knows from Naoto that on August 3rd, Ken dies during internal conflict in Tommen, but now on 3rd they are going to fight Mobius. Unable to think of anything, Takemichi decides to be Ken's bodyguard. But the next day, Ken declines as he doesn't want a weakling as his bodyguard. Takemichi decides to follow Ken. He follows him into a restaurant where he eats with Mikey. who gets angry for not having a flag in his kid's meal, but Ken pulls one out of his pocket and makes Mikey happy. Bromance at its peak, I must say. After eating, Mikey falls asleep and Ken carries him. Ken takes Mikey to the hospital where Pa's Bud's girlfriend is, who is unconscious for 5 days. Her father shows up and yells at them because his daughter is in this condition due to people like them. Ken bows his head while Mikey tells him there is no need as they didn't do anything wrong. As the father keeps yelling and Mikey gets angry, Ken pushes his head down, telling him to shut up and states they take full responsibility. The father soon starts crying over his daughter and then leaves. Ken tells Mikey that they will deal with their problems in their own world and that each of their members have important people to them, and they can't let innocent people get dragged into this. Mikey doesn't need to bow his head but needs to have a heart that cares for others. Mikey apologizes and is glad that Ken is by his side. As Takemichi listens around the corner, he realizes why Mikey had changed after Ken's death, and is sure that those two could never fight each other. They are gay for each other, how could they possibly fight each other? Ken Ryuguchi was born in the Shibuya red light district and lives in a brothel. He never met his father, and his mother was a prostitute that eventually abandoned him. Being taller than most kids, he was intimidating others and was calling himself Draken. In 5th grade, he got his head tattoo and started getting and winning more fights, causing others to fear messing with him. However, there was Samyama crew that dominated the neighborhood. Samyama informs Ken that there is another kid who is getting cocky like Ken and his name is Mikey from 7th middle school, and orders Ken to bring Mikey to him. Unable to disobey, Ken heads looking for Mikey, however he is also excited. He could try fighting him. Ken ends up finding Mikey, but Mikey isn't what he expected as he is much smaller than him. He wonders if he should fight him but informs him that some middle schoolers wanted him to get Mikey to them, but he won't force him. Mikey agrees to go since Ken had asked him, which surprises Ken. When they get to Samyama, Mikey instantly runs and jump kicks Samyama, beating him and scaring the rest. Mikey recognizes Ken as Draken from 4th middle school and wishes to be friends with Ken. Takemichi, wanting to know more about Mobius, returns to the present. Naoto tracks Nobitaka to a construction site. They end up seeing Nobitaka being yelled at for being late and are surprised he used to be Mobius commander. They end up talking with him, and Nobitaka initially refuses to talk about the Tommen fight. However, he denies Naoto's accusations that he ordered Ken's death. Nobitaka reveals that they didn't kill Ken, but the incident was a trigger that led to Tommen's internal conflicts, and all was planned by someone. As Nobitaka's boss calls him, Nobitaka leaves, stating that if Ken didn't die, his life wouldn't have been ruined. Naoto believes Nobitaka as he looked quite shaken and realized that someone used Nobitaka and wished to split Tommen. Takemichi then returns to the past in order to warn Mikey. Takemichi wakes up on a bike with Atsushi Sendo and gets happy that Sendo is still alive. He asks him if he has any dreams, and Sendo reveals he dreams of becoming a hairstylist. Takemichi supports him and states he believes in him. Takemichi then leaves and goes to Mikey, who is with Ken, Pa-chin, and Pan. Takemichi asks Mikey to call off the fight with Mobius, stating that someone is plotting the fight, but he can't tell him how he knows. Pa-chin then pushes Takemichi aside, warning him that he will kill him if he says anything else. Takemichi keeps insisting that it's a trap, which annoys Pa-chin, and he starts hitting him. Mikey states that they are going to fight Mobius as he made up his mind already. As Takemichi states he won't back down, Ken stops Pa-chin and proposes maybe it wouldn't be bad to investigate Mobius a bit more. Mikey then wonders if Ken is against Tommen. Looks like our boy Takemichi is the one responsible for the conflict between Ken and Mikey. Still can't get my head around the way time travel works. Nobitaka Asanai then shows up and states they should respect him as he is 2 years older, which makes Pa-chin angry and he rushes at him. But Nobitaka knocks him with a punch and sends him flying. Nobitaka comments that he heard they are picking a fight with them and calls the rest of the Mobius, who surround the Tommen members. Mobius surrounds the Tommen members. Looking at Nobitaka Asanai, Takemichi can't believe this is the same person he met in the present. Takemichi gets a thorough beating from Nobitaka for looking down on him. Pa-chin interferes to fight Nobitaka. Nobitaka takes on Pa-chin and easily beats him without breaking a sweat. Before Pa can fall to the ground, Mikey catches him. Pa apologizes for being worthless, but Mikey states he hasn't lost. While Mobius members mock Mikey and the rest, Mikey makes his way to Nobitaka, then knocks him out with a single kick. He then calls out all of Mobius, demanding all those that think Pa-chin lost to come out and face him so that he can kill them all. Mikey then states that as long as he is with Tommen, no one in Tommen is ever going to lose. Mikey is one hell of a badass, maybe he is the main character after all. A beaten Nobutaka manages to get up and grab a broken bottle and rushes towards Mikey, but Ken manages to easily stop him. Ken tells Nobutaka that he lost due to losing the true delinquent way as he raped a woman and assaulted someone's parents. Seeing how strong Mikey and Ken are, the Mobius members start to fear them. Ken then announces that Mobius will be under the Tokyo Manji gang. As they hear the police approaching, everyone runs. Takemichi recalls Nobutaka's words that this conflict was the trigger, but is surprised everything ended so peacefully and wonders if he is missing something. In that moment, Pachin stabs Nobutaka in the back like a loser, declaring he is not letting Asanai off that easily. Everyone is shocked. Pachin apologizes to Mikey and tells them to run as he intends to turn himself in. While running, Takemichi loses consciousness as he has got quite a beating from Nobutaka. Takemichi wakes up in hospital with Emma next to him. He wonders how Mikey and Ken are doing, and a crying Emma explains they ended up fighting due to Pachin, and that Tommen is now divided into the Mikey faction and the Ken faction. While Emma cries over Takemichi's lap, Hinata comes and misinterprets the situation, thinking that Emma is giving Takemichi a Gok Gok Deluxe Supreme, in more layman terms, a Hawk Thua. Takemichi spends 3 days at home, and as he is bored, he ends up finishing a large puzzle. His friends visit him and tell him that Tommen is in a bad situation and is likely to split, but then start laughing and explain that Ken and Mikey fight often. At that moment, Ken shows up bringing watermelon and shocking everyone. As they eat it, Ken tells them that Pachin will be held for a year and Nobutaka is alive. Takemichi asks about Mikey, which makes Ken angry, and he slams the table, messing up Takemichi's puzzle, traumatizing poor Takemichi. As Ken leaves Takemichi's home, he sees Mikey in front, and both wonder what the other one is doing there. Both state they are there to see Takemichi, who is their friend. As they continue to argue, Takemichi tries to stop them, which annoys Ken. Mikey then takes Takemichi's bike and throws it at Ken, who dodges, and the bike breaks on the wall. Ken takes the bat that Takemichi scored a home run with and breaks it. As they continue to fight, they continue to break Takemichi precious items as he cries over them. As they break everything and prepare to fight, Takemichi hits Super Saiyan mode and orders them to stop breaking his shit. Takemichi gets angry at Mikey and Ken breaking his stuff and yells at them to stop. Mikey and Ken realize they went overboard and didn't even realize when they broke everything. As Takemichi tries to punch Mikey, he dodges and Takemichi falls into the trash. Ken apologizes and asks Takemichi to calm down. Takemichi explains that they don't care about those around them and their fight will split Tommen. Mikey informs Takemichi that he has shit on his head and then runs away with Ken as Takemichi stinks. Takemichi's friends also ran away. A bit later, after Takemichi washes his hair, he joins Mikey and Ken, who have made up and apologizes for their behavior. Mikey states he forgot what they even fought about, but Takemichi guesses it's due to Pachin, as even though he was guilty, Mikey still wanted to help him, while Ken wanted to honor Pachin's resolve. With Mikey and Ken no longer fighting, Takemichi realizes he changed history and Ken won't die. Hinata and Emma show up and Hinata asks Takemichi if he is free on August 3rd as she wants to go to the festival with him, and Takemichi gladly accepts. My boy won't let any opportunity to hit slide. On August 3rd, Takemichi, Hinata, Emma and Ken go to the festival together. Hinata roots for Emma, knowing that Ken doesn't really get her hints. She knows why Emma was with Takemichi before that, but she still hasn't forgiven Takemichi for cheating on her, but will forgive him if he wins her a special prize at the shooting game. Takemichi tries his best and manages to hit the target but is unable to knock it off and ends up not winning. As it starts to rain, Takemichi and Hinata run to hide under a tree. Hinata's geta is the wrong size and she loses balance, but Takemichi manages to catch her. While staying together, Hinata tells him that she forgives him as he tried hard for the reward. Takemichi realizes it's a good moment for a kiss and attempts to kiss her, but his phone rings. I don't think he will ever be able to get some, he is just not that lucky. He is annoyed at Kazushi for calling in that moment, but Kazushi tells him to warn Ken to watch his back as he heard that some guys are going to kill Ken. Takemichi realizes the conflict hasn't stopped yet. Takemichi hangs up the phone and apologizes to Hinata and asks her to wait for him. He goes around looking for Ken but runs into some of Tommen members with a Mobius guy, who gives Masataka Kiyomizu a blade who states that he will kill Ken. Poor guy was so humiliated by Ken back in the day. One of Masataka's guys finds Takemichi and brings him to Masataka. Masataka then orders Takemichi to go buy them drinks. But as there is no drink store nearby, Takemichi takes quite a beating from the Masataka gang. Takemichi realizes that he has not gotten stronger, but only believes so as if he was around Mikey and Ken. After beating him up, Masataka ties Takemichi with duct tape and leaves him there like a used-up whore. Some moments later, Hinata finds Takemichi tied up and removes the duct tape from his mouth. Takemichi started crying, stating that he tried his best. But in the end, he couldn't save anyone. If he was like Mikey or Ken, he could have beaten them, but as he is worthless, he couldn't do anything. Hinata then kisses him, saying it was her first kiss, and she gives it to him as he is special to her. Finally, our dude got lucky. It seems like he is the main character after all. After crying for a bit, Hinata frees Takemichi, and he decides to go and stop Masataka. Takemichi encounters Takashi Mitsuya and informs him that Ken will be attacked. However, Takashi already knows, but is surprised that it's Masataka and not Pain. Takashi reveals that Mikey wanted to get Pa-chin freed, but Ken was against it. Takashi states that everyone came to an agreement that they couldn't do anything about Pa-chin except Pain, so now Pain wants to kill Ken. These delinquents don't have any reason at all whatsoever. Elsewhere, Pain finds Ken and Emma dating around. While looking for Ken Ryuguji, Takashi explains that Pain believes Tommen abandoned Pa-chin and teamed up with some Mobius members to take out Ken. That's one hell of a betrayal, I must say. Seeing Pain, Ken knows that he isn't happy with what happened and prepares to fight him, but suddenly a Mobius member attacks him with a bat from behind like the cowards they are. Takemichi recalls Nayato's words about Ken's incident happening in a parking lot and heads towards the parking lot. They find Ken fighting numerous Mobius members. As he is getting tired, he sits on the ground and tells Takashi that he leaves things to him. A moment later, they hear a bike and recognize it's Mikey. Mikey enters the scene quite in Dehum style and gets off his bike and realizes that he was called somewhere else so that Pain can be with Ken. He wonders who tricked him into doing that. Shuji Hanma reveals himself and introduces himself as the temporary leader of Mobius. Mikey attempts to kick him in the head, but Shuji manages to block it. Shuji reveals that they intended to destroy Tommen by having them fight internally, but this is also fine as he can kill Mikey by his own 2 hands. Shuji then calls 100 Mobius members and warns them not to run or he will chase them and beat out all their teeth. As Mobius prepares to fight the 4 Tommen members, the rest of Tommen arrives on bikes, ready for a fight, in all Avengers in-game style. As the fight starts, Takemichi goes around looking for Ken, wishing to protect him from Masataka Kiyomizu. He traverses through the battlefield where a furious battle ensues. Many people show off their delinquent fighting styles, beating the hell out of other people. While beating down Mobius members, Mikey approaches Pain and asks him why he attacked Ken, even though they have settled things down. Pain doesn't accept that Tommen gave up on Pa-chin and started punching Mikey. He states that Pa-chin was everything for him and if Tommen abandoned him, it's natural that he would become their enemy. Pain knows that Mikey can beat him in a single hit but wonders why he isn't fighting. He tells him to look at him and if he ever smiled about Pa-chin getting caught. Mikey asks Pain to keep hitting him until he is satisfied, but he doesn't want to fight with his own family and wishes Pain to return to them. Takemichi eventually spots Masataka and decides to stop him, but then sees he holds a bloody blade while repeating he did it. Takemichi then turns around and sees Ken bleeding on the ground. Takemichi finds Ken stabbed and informs Mikey, who attempts to get to Ken, but Shuji Hanma gets in his way and engages Mikey in a fist fight. As Shuji won't let him get to Ken, Mikey tells Takemichi to take care of Ken. Seeing Ken is still alive, Takemichi puts him on his back and tries to carry him to a hospital. Hinata and Emma see him and inform him that they have called for an ambulance. While waiting for the ambulance, Takemichi sees Masataka Kiyomizu and his gang approaching. As he gets scared, Ken awakens and thanks him for helping him and tells him to take Hinata and Emma and run. Takemichi lost everything because he ran away, so he decided to not let his second chance get away. He goes to Masataka and states that he isn't running away and is getting his revenge. Takemichi comments that they haven't finished their one-on-one as he didn't lose. Masataka thinks Takemichi is going crazy, but gets annoyed when Ken, Hinata, and Emma bet that Takemichi would win. Takemichi attempts to punch Masataka, however, he stabs him in the arm, stating that this isn't a one-on-one but an execution. Takemichi attempts to hit Masataka, but he knocks him back. Takemichi recalls how he wanted to take over Japan and be a top delinquent. However, his dreams were shattered by Masataka. He realizes it was his own fault as he was too weak to challenge anyone again. Takemichi then tackles Masataka and bites him. As Masataka hits him trying to make him let go, Takemichi manages to get on his back and starts choking him. As he doesn't let go, Masataka eventually loses consciousness and Takemichi wins. One hell of a dirty fighting style, I must say. Masataka's gang prepared to attack Takemichi. As he stands, he tells Hinata to take Emma and run. Takemichi asks Ken if he wonders how heaven looks like. But laughing, Ken stands up and tells him he is going to hell. Masataka's gang attack, but moments before they reach Takemichi and Ken, Sendo comes out and punches one of them, making him drop his knife. Makoto, Takuya and Kazushi also come out and stand in front of Ken and Takemichi. Sendo informs Takemichi that Hinata had contacted him. They start fighting Masataka's group but are easily getting beaten up. However, inspired by Takemichi when he first faced Masataka, Atsushi and the rest refused to give up and continued standing up. An ambulance's sirens are then heard and Takemichi grins thinking they have won. Hearing the sirens, Masataka's gang decide to run, leaving Masataka behind. Hinata and Emma lead the medics to Takemichi and Ken. Meanwhile, Tommen manages to beat Mobius with only Mikey and Shuji still fighting. Shuji is impressed by Mikey's stamina. However, a man comes to pick Shuji as the cops are coming. While everyone is running, Shuji tells Mikey that he is about to witness the creation of the most sinister biker gang alliance in Kanto, Valhalla, and reintroduces himself as the first vice commander of Valhalla as he zooms off with his lackey. Takemichi is with Ken in the ambulance as they head towards the hospital. Ken thanks Takemichi for saving his life and tells him to take care of Mikey, causing him to get a cardiac arrest, and the doctors start to give him CPR. They reach the hospital and immediately take him to the operation room. One by one, Takemichi's friends and Tommen members arrive. Mikey tells them that Ken is a man of word, and he promised him that they will rule the world together, thus he won't die, and they need to believe in him. As the operation ends, the doctors come out and inform the group that the operation was successful, and Ken is alive. The group is happy and celebrates. They head out to tell the rest about Ken, however Pain states he cannot face them. Tekashi tells him that they know he did it for Pa-Chin's sake. But the one that was thinking the most about Pa-Chin was Ken. Tekashi tells him how Ken went every day with Pa-Chin's parents to see Pa-Chin, even though he was not allowed to see him as he isn't a relative. Learning that, Pain agrees to apologize to everyone. Going outside the hospital, Takemichi realizes it's past midnight and it's August 4th, which means Ken didn't die on August 3rd and his mission is success. As Tommen members celebrate that Ken is alive, Takemichi notices that Mikey is missing and goes to look for him. He finds him alone in a corner crying out with relief that Ken is alive and decides not to interrupt him. On August 10th, the rumors of the fight had brought more rumors and Takemichi has become a legend for stopping the fight. As he enjoys his newfound fame, he doesn't want to go back to the present. He goes to visit Ken but ends up being scolded for how lame he looks and acts. Takemichi yells at him that he can't understand how he lived so far in the shadows and how good it feels now. Ken hands Takemichi Tommen's uniform and states that it is from Mikey and that it belonged to him from when he first formed Tommen. Takemichi is free to decide if he wants to wear it, but Mikey wanted Takemichi to have it as he saved Tommen. Ken stands up and bows, thanking Takemichi one more time. Ken then tells Takemichi to go see Mikey on the roof, where he probably sleeps. Going on the roof, Mikey wonders why Shuji wanted to cause inner conflict within Tommen and why he used Masataka to kill Ken. He finds it even more mysterious that Takemichi realized all that before anyone else and tried to stop it. Takemichi tries to come up with an answer. Mikey mocks him for his lame outfit and thanks him for saving Ken. Takemichi wishes to stay with the rest but decides to return to the present. He goes to Hinata's place to see Naoto. Since he got Hinata in a mess, he tries to make up for it and gives her a 4-clover necklace. As Naoto shows up, Takemichi shakes his hand and returns to the present. He believes that since Ken is alive, Kisaki won't become number 2. Mikey won't change due to Ken's death. Atsushi Sendo won't kill himself and Hinata won't get killed. As he returns in the present, he finds himself in the video store, where his manager Heisukawa is scolding him once again for not working properly. He is surprised he is working there as he got fired. He goes over his phone but can't find Naoto in his contacts. He sees a notification reminder for a scheduled meeting in the salon and wonders what it is. Going to the salon, he finds Atsushi Sendo working there and wonders if he became a hairstylist. Atsushi states he just started and is only an assistant. Sendo reveals he called him because they will finally allow him to start cutting hair next month and want Takemichi to be his first customer as they made that promise. Takemichi is happy that he managed to change the present. He then receives a call from an unknown number and realizes it's Naoto, who realizes that he managed to do it and change the present and wants them to go see Hinata. As he rides in Naoto's car, Takemichi thinks back to his feelings of helplessness when he learned about Hinata's death. Takemichi excitedly thinks about meeting Hinata, while Naoto tells him that the incident that killed Hinata, the Tommen dispute, did not occur in the current future. He remarks that he is surprised that Takemichi successfully accomplished his mission, as he thought he was just a loser and won't be able to do anything. They arrive at Hina's apartment, with Takemichi excited, saying that it is a dream come true. He wonders if Hinata changed in the last 12 years, and Naoto replies that she has. She is now an adult and an elementary school teacher. Suddenly nervous, he tells Naoto that he cannot see Hinata, and that Naoto should visit her alone, as she does not know that he saved her, and they are now strangers to each other. As he walks away, Takemichi says that telling Hinata to have a good life is good enough, believing that Hinata has forgotten about him. He thinks about how he has changed the future, yet he himself has not changed, as he is still in the same circumstances as the beginning. He is still a 26-year-old nobody part-timer, a loser. As he prepares to return to his life, he bumps into a grown-up Hinata, who remarks that he shows up at the weirdest times. Takemichi cries upon seeing her, remembering all the times she helped motivate him in the past, driving him to change the future. Eventually, back in Hinata's apartment, despite their past closeness, Hinata, Naoto and Takemichi sit awkwardly. Unable to withstand the embarrassing atmosphere, Naoto decides to leave, but Takemichi desperately begs him to stay, as he is extremely nervous. Hinata laughs at Takemichi's reaction, remarking that he hasn't changed, whilst Takemichi notices the 4-leaf clover necklace Hinata wears. Naoto decides to bring the group elsewhere as an attempt to lighten the atmosphere. In the car, it is equally as awkward as in the apartment. Takemichi studies Hinata in the rear-view mirror, wondering if it is the same necklace he gave her 12 years ago, and if Hina still loves him. His insecurity gets the best of him, and he tells himself that it is a coincidence, but tries to check again to be completely sure. Suddenly, Naoto is being called by the police, being needed for backup. He decides to leave his car to Hinata and will come back for it tomorrow. Hinata decides to stop the car at a car park, and she asks Takemichi to walk with her. Hinata tells Takemichi that the park evokes memories, specifically a memory of her with someone she liked on Christmas Eve. Hearing this, he thinks back to when Hinata dumped him 12 years ago. Hinata says she still has not forgotten the person she was with on Christmas Eve, who broke up with her. Takemichi replies that he cannot believe that anyone would dump her, and Hinata, crying, wonders why she was dumped, imploring Takemichi. Takemichi comes to the realization that Hinata is talking about him. Overwhelmed with this information, he rushes to the bathroom, confused, as his memories do not align with this information. I swear to gosh, this time travel stuff is going to be the end of me. Hinata's words about not forgetting Takemichi compel him to decide to change, and he decides to ask her out. As he walks out of the bathroom, he encounters a man, who remarks in surprise that Takemichi is not in the car and that he hoped to take them both. Though confused at first, upon seeing the man's hand tattoos, Takemichi realizes that the man is Shuji and gets an uneasy feeling from this. He rushes to Naoto's car, where Hinata is sitting, just in time to see a car ramming into it and squeezing the living hell out of Hinata. Feeling horrified, Takemichi rushes towards the crash. The driver of the car turns out to be a gravely injured Sendo, who asks Takemichi why he is not in the car. Akon says the same things as he did during his previous encounter with Takemichi in the future, wondering when things went wrong, how he came to fear Kisaki, and implores Takemichi to save everyone, while Takemichi screams in despair as the events turned out the same. Sendo's car explodes, and Takemichi rushes to Hinata, who is still alive. As Takemichi attempts to get Hinata out of the car in order to escape the impending fire from the explosion, she thanks him. Takemichi tells her that they do not have time to talk, as the car will explode soon. However, Hinata is gravely injured and has lost all feeling in her legs. Crying, Takemichi crawls into the car, hugging Hinata and confessing that he has, and will always love her. Hinata replies that she is glad to hear that, and tells him to leave the car, as she does not want him to die with her, which Takemichi refuses to do. Feeling the approaching fire, Hinata pushes Takemichi away, smiling at him before the car explodes and implodes into flames. As the fire roars in front of him, Takemichi swears to save Hina and find a future where she is alive, no matter how many attempts it takes. He resolves to become the top member of Tommen in order to do this. At Hinata's funeral, Takemichi reminisces about him meeting Hinata at her doorstep, witnessing the car crash and him telling Hinata he will always love her. Takemichi approaches Hinata's shrine and decides to pay respect towards her. Takemichi froze and shed a tear, with Naoto crying in agony about Hinata's death. On the outside of the building, Hinata's mother approaches Takemichi, remarking that he has grown up. She gives him Hinata's favorite necklace, which was a gift from him, and remarks that Hinata must have loved him very much while he cries. Naoto tells Takemichi that he researched Sendo, who was married and had children in the current future. In reaction to this, Takemichi wonders why Sendo still killed Hina, despite knowing that it was a suicide mission. Naoto concludes that Sendo's family was used to forcing him into doing it, as they are currently missing. Naoto asks about Sendo's last words, and upon hearing that they were the same as after a previous time leap, he says that their actions were in vain, as they were unable to escape fate and change the future. Takemichi tells him that he is wrong, as Ken's death must not have been the deciding factor in turning Tommen bad. He concludes that they must get to the root of the problem and that Tommen must be destroyed. He will become the leader of Tommen to do this. Takemichi wonders how saving Ken could lead to the current future, and Naoto investigates Ken's current life. Later, on October 20th, 2017, Naoto contacts Takemichi and brings him to Tokyo Detention Center, telling Takemichi that Ken is no longer in Tommen, but is not dead. Instead, he is on death row. As he steps into the visitation booth, Ken remarks that he has not seen Takemichi in a long time, and is happy to see him doing well, while Takemichi tears up upon seeing him. Ken steps into the visitation booth and says he is happy that Takemichi is alright. Takemichi introduces Naoto to Ken. Takemichi finds out that Ken is on death row because he committed murder and asks Ken how this happened, as well as what happened to Tommen. Ken says he does not regret his actions, and that he knows he deserves to be in prison, as the current state of Tommen is because of him not stopping that one guy. Ken reflects on the Tommen of his middle school days, which he believes was better as they had fun and it meant everything to him. He reiterates that he has no regrets and would still have lived that way if given a second chance. Despite having few regrets, Ken says that he would make sure to kill that one guy, Kisaki, if he had that second chance. As the visitation time ends, Ken orders Takemichi to leave Tokyo for his safety, as Kisaki will likely try to kill him again. Just as Ken leaves, Takemichi asks him why Kisaki would target him. Ken says that Kisaki's love for Mikey turned into hatred and that Kisaki wants to take away everything Mikey holds dear. In the hallways of the prison, Ken thinks back to the murders he committed on the orders of Kisaki. Back at Naoto's apartment, Takemichi is still in disbelief about Ken's status as a murderer. He thinks back about Ken's words and wonders what kind of person Kisaki is. Naoto replies that Kisaki currently holds one of the most important positions in Tommen, the acting leader. He believes Kisaki is responsible for the repeated murders of Hinata but says that the police cannot find any leads to Kisaki. Takemichi says that though he wants to defeat Kisaki, he has not met him in the past yet. Repeating his previous vow, Takemichi says that he must become the leader of Tommen. Takemichi replies that it is the only way he can save everyone and stop Kisaki. Laying out his plan, Takemichi decides to become the captain of the 3rd Division, in Pachin's place. Naoto says that this is a reckless idea, but trusts Takemichi to successfully fix the future, shaking his hand. As he travels back to the past, Takemichi wonders how the future turned out like this and vows to fix the future. He arrives in the past, sitting in a bathhouse. The water near him begins to bubble, and Mikey playfully pops up from the water, much to the surprise of Takemichi. Ken tells them to quiet down and grow up, and Mikey ridicules him for still using a shampoo hat, despite his tough exterior. Takemichi asks Ken about his stab wound, and Ken replies that he is fine, due to him working out. He shows off his scar and his abs, and Takemichi remarks that he does not look like a middle schooler. Mikey suddenly punches Ken in the abdomen, which proves that Ken is still recovering from his injury, telling him not to push himself. In reaction to this, Mikey and Ken end up playfully fighting in the bathhouse, with Ken's shower head falling in the air and ending up on Takemichi's head. Both Mikey and Ken have a laugh about how Takemichi always has things end up on his head. Takemichi thinks back to what Ken said about how Tommen was better when they were kids. He wishes things could be like this forever. They leave the bathhouse, where Mitsuya, Yasuhiro, and Nahoya are waiting outside. Mikey tells Takemichi that they are going to nominate a new 3rd Division captain. Welp, there goes Takemichi's hope to become the leader of the Tommen. As everyone gathers, Ken announces they will be choosing the new 3rd Division captain. Everyone wonders who that would be. Mikey calls for the new captain to come out and Takemichi starts to wonder if he means him. Kisaki then walks up, passing Takemichi, who recalls he had seen him before, but doesn't know who he is. Kisaki goes to Mikey and sits with his back towards him, which angers the rest of the members. Kisaki's man then announces that the new 3rd Division captain is Kisaki, which shocks Takemichi as he recalls everyone telling him it's Kisaki's fault. Some of the members recognize Kisaki as being part of Mobius and are against it. Mikey explains that they will be facing Valhalla and to defeat them, Tommen needs to grow and re-announce Kisaki as the new 3rd Division captain. Knowing this is the worst outcome and what will happen with Hinata, Takemichi gathers courage and punches Kisaki. Ken yells at him for interrupting the ceremony as he isn't even part of Tommen. The other captains get angry at Takemichi disrespecting Mikey's decision. Keisuke Baji steps up and attacks Takemichi but is stopped by Takashi Mitsuya. Mikey asks Keisuke what he is doing there, as he wasn't allowed to come to their meetings due to certain internal conflict. Keisuke states that he punched some twerp and if he will finally be chased out of Tommen. Keisuke then states that he will be joining Valhalla and quit his position of 1st Division captain of Tommen. Kisaki asks Takemichi if he prefers the face or the guts. Takemichi wonders about what and chooses the guts, however, Kisaki punches him in the face, knocking him out.
Oi, Takemichi.
Forever the weakling one Takemichi is, still can't believe he is the main character here. Takemichi later awakens with Mikey next to him. Mikey wonders if Takemichi dislikes Kisaki. Mikey then asks for a favor and explains that as he grew, he had a neighbor kid that always picked fights with him, but he always beat him. That guy is Keisuke, who punched Takemichi previously and is a founding member of Tommen. Mikey created Tommen in his first year of middle school along with Ken, Takashi, Pa-chin, and Keisuke. Mikey then asks Takemichi to bring Keisuke back from Valhalla as he really likes him. Takemichi agrees, but wants something in return, Mikey to kick Kisaki out of Tommen. Although he can't explain it, Kisaki will ruin Tommen in the future. Mikey agrees and tells Takemichi to bring Keisuke before they fight Valhalla to prove that he is more useful than Kisaki. Mikey is aware that Kisaki is bad news, but he needs his strength, and if Takemichi fails, Mikey tells him that he will kill him. Mikey then yells at Takashi to show up as he knows he is eavesdropping. Mikey then states that Takemichi is joining the 2nd Division under Takashi and is now officially a member of Tommen. Takemichi stays to wash away the blood from his face. Takemichi wonders why Keisuke left and finds a charm on the ground and a photo inside. He realizes this is a photo of the founding members of Tommen but sees a 6th person he can't recognize. Elsewhere, Keisuke meets with the person from the photo, Kazu Hanemiya. The next day at school, Takemichi wonders what to do to bring Keisuke back. Sendo and the rest approached him, commenting they heard he got into Tommen and wish they would join soon as well. However, Takemichi comments it's not as great as it sounds. Takemichi explains that he needs to bring back Keisuke or Mikey will kill him. As Takemichi doesn't know who Valhalla is, Kazushi's delinquent encyclopedia steps in to explain. Kazushi explains that Tommen is led by Mikey and Ken and has 5 divisions each with 20 members for a total of about 100 members. As former 3rd Division Captain Pa-chin was arrested, and Vice Captain Pain joined the 2nd Division under Takashi Mitsuya. The former leader of Mobius, Kisaki, then became the new 3rd Division Captain. Mobius was never a monolith, and those born in 1988 were led by Nobutaka Asanai, while those born in 1990 were led by Kisaki, and the 2 crews always butted heads. However, after losing to Mikey, Mobius disbanded and the group led by Kisaki joined Tommen, making Tommen grow from 100 to 150 members. Takuya wonders about the remaining members of Mobius, and Kazushi explains that they joined Shuji Hanma and created Valhalla, consisting of 300 members. However, Shuji is just the acting commander, and no one knows who the real commander is, and making Valhalla also known as the Headless Angel. Kazushi then explains the remaining anti-Tommen members were gathered by their number 3, Kazu Hanemiya. In that moment, Kazu enters the classroom looking for Takemichi and wondering if the school is already over. Makoto tries to intimidate him, however, Kazushi recognizes the dragon tattoo and stops Makoto, explaining it's Kazu Hanemiya. Cheerful, Kazu hugs Takemichi, commenting that he couldn't believe that someone 1 year younger from him and from the same school is part of Tommen. Kazu then takes Takemichi and wishes to take him to Valhalla's hideout. Stepping out of the classroom, Takemichi sees 2 people with broken legs. Kazu explains they are his most trusted friends, but he broke their legs. Takemichi can't believe what he is hearing and realizes that going with Kazu may get him in serious trouble. However, as this is a chance to meet Keisuke, Takemichi decides to go. On their way, Takemichi comments that Kazu is in 3rd year, however, he hasn't heard of him. Kazu explains that he only went to school in the first term of his first year, as he later was in juvie. They reach an abandoned game center and Takemichi notices a graffiti of a headless angel. As they enter, Takemichi feels the atmosphere being quite different than in Tommen. Takemichi then sees Keisuke beating someone and wonders what is going on. Kazu states it's a test of faith, as changing from Tommen to Valhalla is like changing a religion. Keisuke is currently beating his 1st Division Vice Captain in Tommen, his most trusted retainer. Keisuke stops and asks Shuji if it's enough. Some of Valhalla members comment Keisuke went far more than they expected, but Keisuke states he isn't there for a lecture. Hanma then calls Kazu, who tells him that he brought Takemichi, a new Tommen member. Takemichi starts to realize he may be the next person they do a test of faith. Valhalla members start cheering to kill Takemichi. Shuji explains that Keisuke, one of Tommen's founding members, wishes to join them and that will greatly help them. However, as he may be a spy, he told Kazu to bring a witness. Shuji asks Takemichi what Keisuke said at Tommen's last meeting. Takemichi tells him that Keisuke said he is joining Valhalla and that Tommen is his enemy. Kazu states that it should be enough and that Takemichi is more aware of what is going on in Tommen. Kazu reconfirms if Keisuke wishes to join them as they will kill Mikey. Keisuke agrees to help them out. Shuji then welcomes Keisuke as Valhalla member. Friendships really don't matter in this anime it seems, unless it's some hardcore bromance. Takemichi asks Keisuke why a founding member is betraying Tommen and Keisuke states that Kazu is also a founding member, which surprises Takemichi, but recognizes him from the photo. Keisuke states that Kazu has a grudge on Tommen and he won't forget it. In the summer of 2003, in their first year of middle school, a 12-year-old Keisuke and 12-year-old Kazu head for their usual meeting place but see some punks and decide to fight them. As they reach the meeting place, they see Pa-chin excited about Tommen's jackets being ready. Ken tells them to dress up and take a picture, but then notices Mikey finishes eating at Ken's chocolate parfait and ends up in an argument. Keisuke then explains that after taking the picture, an accident occurred that no one ever expected. In 2003, the newly formed Tokyo Manji gang enjoys life and drives their bikes. But Mikey is too slow with his moped and makes them ride slowly waiting for him. Ken and the rest complain about Mikey's moped, but Mikey acts like it's a CB 250 T Street Hawk. An older biker gang stops next to them and mocks them for never hearing about them. One of them decides to wreck Mikey's moped, but Mikey gives him a cold look stating that he will kill him if he scratches his moped, which ends up scaring the guy. The gang then leave, threatening to crush them next time if they see them. Ken and the rest are fine fighting the gang but blame Mikey for the trouble. The gang continue their ride, disappointed they didn't fight. Mikey's moped stops and he realizes he is out of gas. Ken blames him for not thinking ahead as they told him they were going to drive far off. Ken states they will be waiting for Mikey at the beach. But Mikey tries to play it as Tommen's problem and wants a rock paper scissors to decide who will go for gas. Keisuke Baji ends up losing and takes Mikey's moped to a gas station, while the rest head to the beach. Ken and Takeshi decide to race who will first get to open water and return. Kazu notices that Mikey is missing. Keisuke is unable to find a gas station, however, he meets the biker gang from earlier. They decide to keep their promise and wish to burn the moped. They first beat Keisuke and attempt to break the moped, but Keisuke protects it with his body, telling them to not touch Mikey's bike or he will kill them. A moment later, Mikey appears, stating he forgot his swim trunks in his moped. Mikey then proceeds and kicks his own moped, shocking everyone. He then asks the biker gang how they dare hurt what's important to him. They attempt to tell him that he kicked his own bike, but in an instant Mikey knocks one of them, revealing his important thing is Keisuke. As he confirms Keisuke is alright, the two of them face the gang. August 13, 2003. Kazu takes Keisuke with him and comments that Mikey's birthday is coming up soon and they will be getting him a present, a CB 250T bike. Reaching the bike shop, Kazu states they will be stealing it. Keisuke tells him that Mikey won't be happy getting a stolen one, but Kazu doesn't intend to let Mikey know the truth. Keisuke is still against it, but Kazu manages to convince him as Mikey will get his dream bike and that will make him happy. At night, they break into the bike shop. Keisuke still has doubts but proceeds with Kazu. They see the bike and realize it's not new as it has custom features and is likely there for maintenance. As they cut the chains, Kazu goes outside to open the shutters. The owner then appears realizing they are trying to rob him. As Keisuke panics and wonders what to do, the owner approaches him and recognizes Keisuke. Keisuke then recognizes Shinakairo and wonders what he is doing there, and Shinakairo explains it's his shop. Keisuke then sees Kazu running with a weapon and yells at him to stop. But Kazu proceeds and hits Shinakairo on the head. Kazu states he didn't have a choice as he saw their faces. But Keisuke explains this is Mikey's older brother, which surprises Kazu. Kazu messed up big time. As Shinakairo isn't breathing, Keisuke wonders what to do. While Kazu panics, Keisuke decides to call an ambulance, however he hears police sirens and tells Kazu they need to run. Kazu is in a state of shock and mumbles he did it for Mikey, so this is Mikey's fault and thus he needs to kill Mikey. The police arrest Kazu and Keisuke and as they are escorted out, Mikey shows up and asks Keisuke what is going on. Keisuke starts crying and apologizes to Mikey, while Kazu still mumbles he needs to kill Mikey. After explaining what happened in the past, Keisuke says that he avoided juvie thanks to Kazu defending him, and has been waiting for Kazu to get out. Hearing the story, Shuji immediately accepts Keisuke and gives him a Valhalla jacket. Shuji then tells Takemichi to tell Mikey that Tommen and Valhalla's fight will occur on October 31st, in an abandoned car lot. Later in bed, Takemichi thinks about the upcoming battle and that there is no way for him to bring Keisuke back. The next day, while heading towards school, Takemichi wonders what he will tell Mikey. A beaten-up guy calls him to come and sit on the swings with him, but Takemichi doesn't recognize him and decides to continue. The guy then mentions Keisuke and that he is Chifuyu Matsuno, 1st Division Vice Captain, the guy who got beaten up by Keisuke to prove his loyalty to Valhalla. Chifuyu tells him he should be thankful for Keisuke as Takemichi ruined the new 3rd Division Captain ceremony, and if it wasn't Keisuke, he would have gotten it worse. Chifuyu then explains that Keisuke beat him to join Valhalla, but not to defeat Tommen, but to expose Kisaki. Takemichi and Chifuyu go meet with Mikey and Ken at Shinakairo's grave. Ken and Mikey explain that they are aware that Keisuke and Kazu didn't intend to kill his brother, but Mikey's heart still can't accept it. Mikey explains that they tried to steal his brother's bike and give it to Mikey as a birthday present, and the bike is all he had left of his brother. Mikey had forgiven Keisuke, but he will never forgive Kazu for killing his brother or Keisuke for going over to Kazu's side. Mikey wonders why Takemichi brought up Keisuke's vice captain and not Keisuke, and what he wants to do. Takemichi recalls his earlier conversation with Chifuyu, who explains that even though Keisuke hasn't said it himself, he knows him and knows that he is investigating Kisaki and requests Takemichi's help to investigate Kisaki as well. Chifuyu then asks Takemichi what he wanted to do when he attacked Kisaki during the ceremony. Recalling the promise he made, Takemichi tells Mikey that he wants to become the head of Tommen, and he will make Mikey acknowledge that someday. As they leave, Chifuyu offers Takemichi that he will help him become Tommen's head if he helps him with Kisaki. Takemichi wonders if Chifuyu believes he can become the head of Tommen, but Chifuyu doesn't believe it, but will still help him. Takemichi agrees and they shake hands, sealing their new partnership. To find a connection between Valhalla and Kisaki, Chifuyu decides to visit Nobutaka Asanai. Nobutaka tells them that when he first met Kisaki, he thought he was a dull brat. Kisaki offered to join him, and he will help him take over Tokyo. Nobutaka ended up doing what Kisaki told him, and in a year, he went from a moron who could only fight to the commander who ruled Shinjuku. Nobutaka realized he was just a stepping stone during the battle on August 3rd. Kisaki had planned everything and pushed Pachin to create a reason to fight with Tommen and led Nobutaka to take all the blame. After Nobutaka was stabbed, Kisaki told him he didn't like how he did things and got closer to Mikey, telling him he could prove Pachin's innocence. Kisaki intended to kill Ken and take the number 2 spot in Tommen. After abandoning him, Kisaki now has a new sword, and that is Shuji Hanma. Chifuyu wonders why Nobutaka hasn't taken Kisaki out by now. Nobutaka comments that if he was just a good fighter or a little cunning, he would have done it. But Kisaki is bad news and will try killing someone without getting his hands dirty. As Nobutaka is afraid of what Kisaki could do, he decided not to deal with him. Chifuyu realizes that Kisaki is Valhalla's leader. Takemichi wonders what to do and decides to return to the present. In the present, Takemichi takes Naoto and they go visit Ken. Takemichi asks Ken if he remembers Valhalla and if their leader is Kisaki. However, Ken denies it and states the Valhalla leader is Mikey. He proceeds to explain that Valhalla was a gang put together for Mikey. Takemichi can't believe it as Mikey is the head of Tommen. Ken then tells him to recall the bloody Halloween 12 years ago, when Tommen was taken out by Valhalla and the new Tokyo Manji gang was created with Valhalla as its parent organization. Takemichi is surprised that Tommen lost with the invincible Mikey, but Ken states they lost because of Mikey. On that day, Mikey ended up killing Kazu. Ken explains that Mikey was never caught for killing Kazu since Kisaki had prepared a patsy for him. Mikey then fell into darkness and Tommen was overtaken by Valhalla, expanding into a giant organization with Mikey as commander and Kisaki as acting commander. Takemichi can't believe that Mikey would kill anyone, but Ken questions him if he would not have done it himself if Kazu had killed his brother and then also killed Keisuke in front of him. As they leave, Takemichi still can't believe Mikey can kill anyone. However, he has started seeing glimpses of what happened that day. He recalls seeing Keisuke, Kazu and Mikey's devastated face and wishes to save him. At Naoto's place, Naoto explains that on Bloody Halloween, Tommen ended up losing to Valhalla all because Mikey ended up killing Kazu. Takemichi then decides to save Keisuke, which in return will cause Mikey to not make that mistake of killing Kazu and stop Kisaki's plan. Deciding on the new mission to protect Keisuke, they shake hands and Takemichi returns to the past. Takemichi finds himself walking Hinata to her home. She tells him to wait and comes out with a present. As Takemichi opens it, he sees it's the same clover medallion he gave her, making them both matching medallions. Takemichi recalls how much it meant to Hinata and starts crying and thanking her. Ken calls Kazu and asks him if they can stop the fight. Ken wonders why Kazu hates Mikey that much, even though Mikey spoke in Kazu's defense, which is the reason he got out of juvie early. Kazu states he spent 2 years in a cell and is no longer the same. Ken states that he is still part of his crew and Kazu states that this is what he doesn't like in him and leaves stating that they will crush Tommen in the upcoming battle. A day before the battle, Chifuyu takes Takemichi to meet with Keisuke. Chifuyu questions Keisuke if he found anything about Kisaki. He explains that he did his own research and found out that Kisaki is bad news, so Keisuke no longer needs to stay in Valhalla. Keisuke tells him not to trust anyone who isn't his friend and tomorrow they will crush Tommen. Takemichi requests to talk with Keisuke alone. He then asks him not to die tomorrow as that will make Mikey sad. Keisuke states that he will kill Mikey tomorrow and Takemichi can go and tell him that. Later, Takemichi meets Mikey and tells him that he couldn't bring Keisuke. Mikey states it isn't Takemichi's fault if Keisuke doesn't back down and that just means Keisuke betrayed Tommen, and they will fight tomorrow. Later, during a meeting of Tommen, Mikey explains that they will be fighting with Valhalla tomorrow, and they won't show mercy to traitors. However, Mikey then states that he will be childish for a moment and states that he can't fight his friend. Mikey then hypes everyone and tells them to help him out win tomorrow and bring Keisuke back. As everyone cheers Tommen, Kisaki is amazed and comments that this is what he wanted. Mikey apologizes to Ken, wondering if he is a failed commander, but Ken tells him the cheers disagree. On October 31, 2005, the day of the battle, Takemichi sees a large group of people at the place of the fight and wonders what they are doing there. Chifuyu explains that they are there to see Tommen versus Valhalla as the winner would be one step closer to running Tokyo, thus all the delinquent bosses are here to watch. Chifuyu then points out to the Heitani brothers, 2 charismatic brothers from Roppongi that can gather over 100 people with a single call. The fat dude on the car, Leanman, runs Ueno and is strong as a beast. Hansen then steps up, explaining that he will be overseeing the fight and introducing himself as a member of Ikebukuro criminal black members. Chifuyu explains he is someone big from the 1988 group and will be like a referee. Hansen then calls both groups and Tommen and Valhalla appear. Mikey thanks Hansen for agreeing to oversee the fight. Hansen states that if the fight sucks, he will be taking them both down. As representatives Ken and Kazu are called. Hansen asks them if they will be fighting 5-on-5 with their best guys or an all-out melee with everyone. Ken states that Valhalla wants this fight, so they must decide, but has one condition: if they win, they will be taking Keisuke back. As Ken insists on that, Kazu gets angry and knocks out Hansen, commenting that they haven't come here to play house or something, but to kill them all. The two gangs then run towards each other, starting the fight. The brawl between Tommen and Valhalla starts, with the top Tommen members doing very well. Takemichi tries to look out for Keisuke but ends up in a fight with a Valhalla member. Kazu attempts to attack Mikey, but Ken stops him, stating that he won't let him touch Mikey. However, Shuji Hanma steps in and pushes Ken away, deciding that they will be fighting each other and leaves Kazu to fight Mikey. Takemichi is in trouble, losing his fight, but Takashi saves him. However, he scolds him, asking him why he came, since they are there to fight and he needs to stay focused. Takemichi gets motivated. However, as he sees 2 big scary guys in front of him, he gets scared again. Chifuyu gets behind him, telling him he will be covering his back, and that there is no one here who isn't afraid, but what matters is how you face that fear. Recalling Hinata's death, Takemichi gets a hold of himself and starts fighting back. As the fight proceeds, Takashi tells Ken that Valhalla consists of older and bigger members, and they are twice as many as Tommen. While the captains can hold their ground, the weaker guys are getting owned. Ken goes and protects a weaker member, who apologizes, stating that he wishes he could fight like the captains, but Ken tells him he will protect all. As more of the weaker guys start to collapse, Ken sees Takemichi running and swinging his fights, yelling at Valhalla members to come and fight him. As Takemichi yells he will crush all. The weaker guys get motivated and stand up to continue fighting. No longer needing to protect them, Ken goes on offense and starts beating Valhalla members one by one. As he dispatches a large number of enemies, Ken turns towards Shuji to continue their fight and sends him flying a couple of meters with a single punch. Mikey follows Kazu, who climbs on a pile of used cars. A Valhalla captain launches a surprise attack, but Mikey manages to block it. Kazu then states that he didn't promise to fight one-on-one and explains he brought the strongest fighters while he was in juvie, Chonbo and Chom. As they engage him, Chomo realizes that Mikey is indeed a real deal. Kazu then explains he lured him here as his footing won't be stable and he won't be easily launching his deadly kicks. Chonbo is surprised that Mikey is easily able to fight against him and Chom, but they manage to grab him and restrain him, giving Kazu a chance to come and hit him in the head with a pipe. As Mikey falls, everyone is surprised and Kazu believes they have won. Mikey is bleeding but manages to get up and asks Kazu if he is Kazu's enemy. Kazu then recalls a moment when Mikey told him that he belongs to him, along with his pain and suffering. He then recalls how he was being abused by his father while his mother didn't do anything. Kazu then tells Mikey that he went to juvie because of him and naturally Mikey is his enemy. Killing someone makes you a bad guy, but killing your enemy makes you a hero. Chonbo and Chom then hold Mikey while Kazu proceeds to hit him with the pipe. Angry, Mikey asks did he kill his brother because he was his enemy. He then hits Chom with the back of his head and raises his leg while Chonbo is still holding him and then kicks Kazu in the head, knocking him down. Mikey knocks out Kazu, Chom and Chonbo, however, he then falls on his knees and stops moving. As everyone sees that, the Valhalla members guess that he is exhausted and decide to use the chance to defeat him, and a small group of them led by one of Valhalla remaining captains leads them towards Mikey. Takemichi looks around asking if someone could help Mikey, but as he sees everyone is busy fighting, he decides he himself needs to save Mikey and heads towards him. While running side by side with Valhalla members, Takemichi constantly gets hit by them, but he stands up and continues to run. The Valhalla captain Choji had reached Mikey is about to kill him, however, Kisaki steps in and knocks him out. Seeing that, Takemichi recalls that he had seen Choji with Kisaki in the past. Kisaki announces that his division will be taking care of Mikey. Hearing that, all Tommen members praise Kisaki and comment that he is stealing the spotlight. Takemichi realizes that even if they win, it will be great for Kisaki, and if they lose, they will be absorbed into Valhalla, and either way Kisaki wins. At that moment, Keisuke Baji comes and hits Kisaki with a pipe, stating that he is taking him down. Kisaki's man, Hamada, then pushes Keisuke down, and as Kisaki gets up, he tells him to kill Keisuke. Chifuyu gets in front of Keisuke, asking him not to fight Kisaki as taking him down now will mean that he is betraying Mikey. Keisuke punches Chifuyu, telling him to move and that he only kept him because he could fight. Chifuyu tells him he is there to protect him and that he won't be holding back. Keisuke gives him a try in 10 seconds to attack him, however, Chifuyu doesn't move or attack Keisuke. Keisuke was about to start climbing the cars again, but Takemichi comes and charges him, holding him and yelling at Chifuyu that they need to protect Keisuke. Chifuyu cries and states that he cannot hit Keisuke. Keisuke hits Takemichi, but he manages to fight the pain and keeps holding Keisuke. However, Takemichi then realizes that Kisaki isn't the one that kills Keisuke, but Kazu appears behind them and stabs Keisuke in the back. Takemichi pushes Kazu back and asks Keisuke if he is okay, and Keisuke confirms it's just a scratch. Chifuyu jumps on Kazu, who mumbles it's Keisuke's fault. Takemichi is glad that he managed to save Keisuke, and recalling the events until now, he states the only thing left for him is to crush Kisaki and become the top of Tommen. Keisuke realizes that Takemichi and Chifuyu are also after Kisaki, but punches them, telling them to stay away. As Keisuke heads towards Kisaki, he tells Takemichi to take care of Mikey. Keisuke then faces the 50 members of the 3rd Division by himself. Kisaki realizes that Kazu failed and tells Hamada to be careful. Hamada believes the 50 men they have would be enough, but he gets knocked out by Keisuke, who then points a pipe at Kisaki. However, at that moment, Keisuke starts spitting blood and falls on his knees. Keisuke falls due to his injury. Chifuyu wonders what Kisaki has done, but Kisaki states he hasn't done anything. Takemichi and Chifuyu then realize it's the wound from Kazu and it's much more serious than Keisuke stated. Takashi tells another member to call an ambulance. Kisaki guesses that Kazu is indeed crazy and had brought Keisuke to Valhalla so that he can finish him off himself. As Mikey stands up, Takemichi realizes that Kisaki is trying to provoke Mikey into attacking Kazu. Mikey reveals he thought of killing Kazu the moment he got out of juvie, however Keisuke managed to convince him to not do it and that Kazu wanted to make Mikey happy. And to make things make sense for him, he had to make Mikey his enemy. As Mikey steps down, he says the fight is over. Shuji tells him it's not something he can decide, but in that instant, Mikey kicks and knocks out Shuji. Shocked by his overwhelming strength, most of the Valhalla members ran away. Mikey then approaches Kazu, who tells Mikey that one of them must die. In an instant, Mikey punches Kazu and starts beating him up. As he proceeds to beat him, Takemichi recalls Ken's words from the future and realizes that he isn't changing anything. While being beaten, Kazu recalls an earlier conversation with Shuji, who reveals that Keisuke is an enemy. Thinking that Keisuke will abandon him too, Kazu sneaks behind Keisuke while Takemichi holds him and stabs him in the back. Kazu then recalls when he killed Mikey's brother and how he ended up blaming Mikey and wanting to kill him, but Keisuke told him to not say such things and that he will be with him until the end. Kazu realizes that Keisuke was indeed always with him, and he ended up destroying the most important thing to him, and accepts his death, waiting to join Keisuke in the afterlife. Keisuke then manages to stand up, yelling Mikey's name, who then stops and turns to Keisuke. Keisuke thanks him for getting mad at him. Keisuke then walks past Mikey and tells Kazu that he won't die, so he must not worry. Saying that he won't die by his hands, Keisuke takes out a knife and stabs himself. Chifuyu and Takemichi go to Keisuke, who in his final moments tells Takemichi that Kisaki is the enemy. He tells him that after the fight with Mobius, when Pachin stabbed Nobutaka Asanai, Kisaki asked Mikey to let him be the 3rd Division captain in exchange for getting Pachin out of jail. He tried to solve it himself but couldn't. However, as he dies by his own hands, Mikey won't have a reason to kill Kazu. Seeing Shinakairo, Keisuke tells Takemichi that in a way, he is like him and tells him that he is leaving Mikey and Tommen to him. Keisuke then says he would like a yakisoba to split with Chifuyu, who tells him he will go buy one. As Keisuke thanks him, he takes his last breath and dies in Chifuyu's hands. As Chifuyu's cry resonates, Mikey continues to pummel Kazu, adamant about killing him. Chifuyu acknowledges that he knew Keisuke hadn't betrayed them and had been fighting alone, but he couldn't save or protect him. Amidst his tears and despair, Takemichi reflects on Keisuke's words, which entrusted Mikey and the future of Tommen to him. Determined, Takemichi steps between Mikey and Kazu, who threatens to kill him too if he doesn't move. Mikey delivers a punch to Takemichi, urging him not to speak for Keisuke. In response, Takemichi insists that Keisuke sacrificed himself for both Mikey and Kazu. He took his own life not only to absolve Kazu of guilt but also to implore Mikey to forgive him. As Takemichi removes his jacket, a charm falls to the ground. Mikey picks it up, inquiring about its origin. Takemichi reveals that he found it during their final meeting. The charm triggers a realization in Mikey as he recognizes it, recalling how they had created Tommen together. Back on June 13, 2003, Mikey wishes the gang to gather at the shrine. He rides along with Keisuke on his bike. As they stop at a red light, Keisuke claims his bike is the best in Tokyo. The rest of the gang also stop one by one at the red light, and each claims his bike is the best. As it turns green, Pachin passes them all, stating his bike is the best and calls a race to the shrine. Annoyed, they all started racing, but Mikey started to feel tired and fell asleep. Because they could fall, Keisuke drives more slowly and arrives last at the shrine, also having to carry the sleeping Mikey to the top. Mikey wakes up and as they gather around, he asks them if they have heard about the Black Dragons. Takashi confirms, stating they are brutal and 3 years older. Mikey then asks Kazu why he hasn't told them he was fighting the Black Dragons alone, and Pachin recalls that Kazu lives in the Black Dragons' territory. Mikey wishes to take them on, but the Black Dragons are big gang. Keisuke then proposes they form their own gang. They quickly agree and Keisuke explains what position each one will have, Mikey as commander, Ken as vice commander, Takashi, a mediator who will command the elite guard. The powerhouse Pachin will carry their banner, while Keisuke and Kazu will be the attack unit. Mikey states he came up with a name Tokyo Manjiro Gang. Everyone finds the name lame but agrees to form a gang. Mikey wonders what kind of gang they want, and Keisuke wishes for a gang where they could all risk their lives for each other. Pachin then suggests they buy charms to commemorate the event. They go to buy charms but see that each costs 500 yen. Emptying their pockets, they realize no one has enough to buy himself a charm. Ken suggests they combine their money and that way they can buy one charm. As they buy one, Mikey suggests that Keisuke keeps it as they form the gang because of his idea. Back in the present, Mikey holds charm, recalling past events and that Keisuke was the one that created Tommen, wanting it to be a gang that protects everyone. Moments later, they hear police sirens and everyone decides to leave. Kazu tells them to leave as he will remain with Keisuke, as it's his fault and wishes to settle it. As Tommen starts to leave, Kazu tells Mikey that he can't ask for forgiveness, but he will carry the burden for the rest of his life and bows down. The battle ended as Tommen's victory, but Kazu is arrested. Later, the conflict became known as the Bloody Halloween. 2 weeks later, Chifuyu visits Keisuke's grave, bringing him some yakisoba that he splits with him as he promised. Chifuyu recalls the time he was 12 and started his first year in a new school. He quickly beats some older guys, claiming to be the most important guy there. Later, his followers tell him that there is a guy that was held back and is still in his first year. Believing he could be some good delinquent, Chifuyu goes to look for him. But when he finds Keisuke Baji, he is surprised to see him look like a nerd with glasses and slicked back hair. He wonders why he was held back, and his followers guess he was an errand boy and decided to stop coming to school, or he is a shut-in. Initially, Chifuyu loses interest, but later visits Keisuke when he is alone. Looking at him studying, he points out he couldn't write tiger correctly and wonders why he is dressed like that. Keisuke states he can't be held back, or he will make his mother cry. Chifuyu shows him how to write a tiger and Keisuke finds him a nice guy, and they end up talking more.
は分数キモせえなてめえに関係ねえだろうが殺す
While going home, Chifuyu gets stopped by one of the senpais he beat earlier, who called an older guy from the Mandala gang. Chifuyu ends up headbutting their commander, stating he was just trying to greet them, and states they are lame for ambushing a single guy. Chifuyu manages to beat some of them, but they are too many for him. Keisuke then shows up, stating they are lame for attacking one guy, but thanks to Chifuyu as with his help he managed to finish his letter. As thanks, he decides to help him and takes the Mandala commander in a single blow. As he beats them all, he warns them that if they touch his friend again, he will crush their entire gang. Keisuke then asks Chifuyu if he likes yakisoba. Amazed by what Keisuke did, Chifuyu confirms. Keisuke then invites him to his place, making Chifuyu realize they live in the same building, but on different floors. However, Keisuke ends up having only one yakisoba and they end up splitting it. Finding Keisuke cool, Chifuyu decides to become his follower. At Tokyo Juvenile Detention Center, Takemichi and Ken visit Kazu. Kazu tells them he is likely to get 10 years, but wonders if that's enough. However, he has no intention of running away and will face what he has done. Ken tells him not to die, knowing what Kazu was thinking, and that he won't forgive him if he takes his life to try to make amends. He then gives him a message from Mikey that he is still part of Tommen and that he forgives him. After meeting with Kazu, Ken tells Takemichi that Mikey also has a message for him. He has something important to talk with him and wants him to be at the next gang gathering. Takemichi wonders what he wants to talk about. He recalls he failed to do anything on the bloody Halloween and Keisuke died and Kazu was arrested, but Mikey didn't kill Kazu. He wonders if that is enough to stop Kisaki from taking over Tommen. While following Ken, Takemichi realizes they are in Shibuya and Ken tells him they are almost at his place, which surprises Takemichi that Ken lives in the middle of the city. However, Takemichi is shocked to see he lives in a brothel. The moment they get out of the elevator, a woman scolds Ken for being home early as that won't make him a proper delinquent. Ken is then asked to change a light bulb, and he tells Takemichi to wait for him in the lobby. While waiting, he sees a man also waiting and clipping his nails. As the man decides to go to the toilet, a girl comes out and introduces herself as Rumi, thanking Takemichi for requesting her. She takes him with her and asks him to take a shower. As he does, she asks if she can join him and Takemichi starts imagining Ken decided to help him lose his you-know-what. Coming out of the shower, Takemichi sees Ken, who wonders what Takemichi is doing. Irritated, Rumi realizes Takemichi is one of Ken's friends. Ken tells her she must confirm with her customers, but she counters saying the lobby isn't for personal use. As she leaves, Ken explains he has no parents and everyone at the brothel raised him together. At Ken's room, Takemichi notices pictures of the gang and Ken reveals these are all the people who are important to him. He reveals he knew it was wrong, but also wanted to kill Kazu and thanks Takemichi for stopping Mikey as he himself couldn't. Leaving his place, Takemichi comments that he understands Ken. But as he also saw a picture of Emma, he knows for sure he cares for her and cheers for her to keep pursuing him. He sees Emma and how she runs to Mikey, hugs him and tells him she loves him. Shocked, Takemichi starts to panic about what will happen if Ken sees this and that this will be the end of Tommen for sure. Hinata shows up and comments that there is indeed some mystery. Naoto explains they were shopping and saw Takemichi. Knowing that Emma likes Ken, Hinata wonders what is going on and decides to solve the mystery. The three of them start following Emma and Mikey around. Kazushi ends up seeing Takemichi. After Takemichi explains the situation, Kazushi states he heard rumors of Emma and how she had been seen numerous times leaving Mikey from his house. As it was always early in the morning, it means she was spending the night there. Hinata then concludes that Emma is two-timing them. She decides to confirm it, commenting that if it's true, she would feel bad for Ken and confronts Emma and Mikey, wondering what is going on. Ken appears and shocks Takemichi. As he approaches Emma and Mikey, Takemichi believes this is the end. But then Ken laughs and comments that Mikey is hanging out with his little sister on her birthday. Ken then tells Takemichi that Emma and Mikey are siblings from different mothers, shocking both Takemichi and Hinata. Emma states she told Hinata about it, but Hinata had completely forgotten and acted distracted with Kazushi. Ken gives a present to Emma, a plush toy she wanted from the arcade. As they leave, Hinata hopes that Emma and Ken can work things out and hopes things work for them as well. After walking Hinata home, Takemichi receives a call from Takashi. The next day, while waiting for Takashi, Pain shows up, asking him if Takashi called him here, but as he is busy, he will be the one to show him around. A girl, Yasuda, comes out and yells at Pain, wondering if he is there again to bother their president. The president, Takashi, shows up, saying that he asked Pain to run an errand for him, but Yasuda states he hates all delinquents except him. As he invites them inside, he tells him to wait a bit as it will be done soon. Takemichi is surprised to see that Takashi is the president of a sewing club. He wonders what will be done soon and Pain tells him it's his jacket, and it's the first jacket he personally makes outside for the original members. Takashi explains he wanted to do it as thanks for what Takemichi had done for them. Next day, at Tomen's gathering, Takemichi shows up with his new Tomen jacket. Ken formally welcomes him to Tomen and starts the meeting. Ken warns him that this is going to be an important meeting for him, so he must be prepared. Mikey then shows up with Shuji Hanma and Chifuyu Matsuno. Everyone in Tomen is wondering what Shuji Hanma is doing there. Mikey announces their win over Valhalla and thanks everyone for giving their all in the battle and lets Shuji say a few words. Shuji then explains that Valhalla didn't have a leader for a long time and after their defeat, they will fall under Tomen and become part of it. Tomen members are excited about how big they are becoming and start cheering for Tomen. Shuji also explains that someone brought the two gangs together and calls Kisaki. Takemichi starts to worry that Kisaki will again manage to take over Tomen and it may result in a worse future. Mikey states that while they gained something from the battle, they lost Keisuke Baji and then leaves Chifuyu Matsuno to say a few words. Chifuyu explains he was planning on leaving Tomen, but at Keisuke's grave, Mikey asked him if he was going to blow out the flame of the 1st Division. Chifuyu thinks it will be too much for him to handle being the 1st Division captain. Thus he talked with Mikey for days and finally they came to a conclusion. Chifuyu himself is going to decide who he will follow and then calls Takemichi, wanting him to become the 1st Division captain. Chifuyu believes that Keisuke wanted this and chose Takemichi. Recalling the future and all the promises he made, Takemichi starts to believe it's not over yet, and he still can change Tomen, and then accepts. Takemichi then goes to shake Naoto's hand and returns to the present. He finds himself in the DVD rental shop he worked for, but the manager, Heisukawa, approaches him and explains they didn't have what he wanted. Takemichi then sees his expensive clothes and new hairstyle in the mirror. Exiting the shop, a guy Takemichi can't recognize waits for him and tells him to come in the car. In the car, the guy tells him they are going to Takemichi's place by Takemichi's order, which surprises him as his apartment isn't in that direction. Wondering what to do, he decides to call Naoto, but realizes he doesn't have his phone number. As they arrive and Takemichi comes out of the car, more scary guys greet Takemichi, but feels he has seen two of them. One of them complains they are slow and tells Kazushi Yamagishi he had to keep Takemichi in line. Kazushi explains they were late due to Takemichi wanting to visit the DVD store, making Takemichi realize the guy was Kazushi. Takemichi also realizes the two other guys are Makoto Suzuki and Takuya Yamamoto. As they get into the building and everyone calls him boss, looking at how luxurious it is, Takemichi wonders if he got into a winning future. Reaching his apartment, he sees Chifuyu waiting for him, who tells him that the upper echelon is having a meeting, and they need to go. Takemichi can't understand what is going on and Chifuyu reminds him he is Tokyo Manji Gang's top exec. Going on to the meeting, Takemichi sees unfamiliar faces, but recognizes Pa Chin, who comments that not everyone is there yet. Takemichi also recognizes Yasuhiro Muto from the 5th Division and Nahoya Kawada, captain of the 4th Division. He sees new faces as Hakai Shiba, Seishu Inui, and Hajime Kakanoi. As Pa Chin wants more food, the old Tomen members get into an argument with the younger ones, with Seishu Inui commenting that they are bringing money to Tomen, while the old-timers are just lazing around. Chifuyu is annoyed and comments they are ex-Black Dragon members. Shuji didn't want to discuss treasury funds and explains that Hajime's at business, Hakai's cover business, and a few others were searched by the cops 3 days ago, which should mean there is a traitor among them. Pa Chin doesn't believe there is a traitor, but Hajime states there is no other explanation. As they argue and insult each other, Kisaki comes, and everyone bows and greets him. While it's rare for him to show up to those meetings, he explains he had something to take care of and then approaches Takemichi and requests to speak with him and Chifuyu. Going into another room, Kisaki asks them if they hate him and recalls it was around 12 years ago when Keisuke died, and it was all his fault. Kisaki confesses that he arranged the bloody Halloween and used Shuji to sweet-talk Kazu and form Valhalla. He then made the gangs fight as he wanted power and praise. Kisaki explains he didn't intend to kill Keisuke and apologizes to Chifuyu. He is fine if they keep hating him but want to take a toast to Keisuke.
あれ、嘘だ。
As they drink, Kisaki then confesses that he lied and used Kazu to kill Keisuke and is about to finish what he started. Takemichi's head starts to spin and he loses consciousness. Takemichi later wakes up tied to a chair next to Chifuyu. Kisaki then kicks Chifuyu, stating that he never forgot Keisuke's death and has been trying to get revenge all these years and wants them to confess that they are the traitors. Chifuyu states he only wanted to chase Kisaki out of Tommen. As Tommen is rotten right now, he wants to clean it and admits he is the traitor. He tries to explain that Takemichi doesn't have anything to do with it, but Kisaki doesn't believe it. He goes and shoots Takemichi in the leg, wondering why he is acting all surprised. Kisaki then points his gun at Chifu's head and asks him if he has final words. Chifuyu asks Takemichi to listen and tells him that in the last years Mikey had disappeared, and Ken Ryuguji was executed, and before they knew it, they got involved in messed up shit. Chifuyu then tells him he leaves Keisuke's feelings and Tommen in his hands, and in that moment Kisaki shoots him in the head. Takemichi can't believe that Chifuyu is dead and starts crying even more. Kisaki yells at him if that's all he's got. As tears appear in Kisaki's eyes, he says goodbye to Takemichi, his hero, and pulls the trigger.
じゃあな、俺のヒーロー。
And that wraps up season 1. What a cliffhanger, right? If you'd like a recap for the next season, let me know in the comments. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more. Until next time, peace.